May 28, 1940. In the imposing Reich Air Ministry building in Berlin, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring set down an intelligence report with barely concealed contempt. The document detailed President Roosevelt's audacious request to Congress, an unprecedented expansion of American aircraft production capable of manufacturing 50,000 planes annually. The Americans are desperate if they believe such propaganda will frighten us, Göring told his assembled staff, his voice dripping with disdain. They know nothing of war production. Let them try to convert their automobile factories. They will learn that building warplanes requires more than assembly lines. What Göring failed to grasp in that moment of supreme arrogance was that in Detroit, a Danish immigrant named William Knudsen was already proving him catastrophically wrong. The former General Motors president, now working for the symbolic salary of $1 per year as Roosevelt's production chief, was orchestrating what would become the most ambitious industrial transformation in human history. Within 4 years, American factories would produce not the impossible 50,000 aircraft Göring had dismissed, but nearly 300,000 planes while simultaneously supplying 2 theaters of war across opposite oceans. This is the story of how democratic industrial might bury totalitarian contempt under an avalanche of aluminum and steel. The proclamation that triggered German contempt came on May 16, 1940, as Nazi panzers raced through France and the world watched in horror. Standing before a packed Congress, Franklin Roosevelt declared with characteristic resolve, "I should like to see this nation geared up to the ability to turn out at least 50,000 planes a year." The reaction was skepticism, even among America's allies. The numbers seemed to justify the doubt. In 1939, America had produced a mere 3,611 military aircraft. The Army Air Corps possessed just 1,700 combat planes, many of them obsolete relics. Yet Roosevelt was demanding a 14-fold increase in production, a goal that appeared to defy the laws of physics and economics. But Roosevelt understood something his critics did not. America possessed untapped industrial potential that dwarfed any nation on earth. What was needed was the right man to unlock it. When presidential advisor Bernard Baruch was asked who could achieve such impossible production targets, his response was emphatic. First, Bill Knudsen. Second, Bill Knudsen. Third, Bill Knudsen. William Knudsen embodied the American dream. Born in Denmark, he had risen through the ranks of General Motors to become its president, commanding a salary of $300,000, astronomical for the era. Yet when his adopted nation called, he abandoned his corporate empire to serve for $1 a year, bringing automotive mass production principles to aircraft manufacturing. Knudsen understood what the German leadership did not. That American industrial capacity was not merely large, it was infinitely adaptable. The same principles that had revolutionized automobile production could be applied to aircraft manufacturing, but only if traditional thinking was abandoned entirely. The transformation began immediately. By December 1941, American factories were producing 2,000 military aircraft monthly, a 20-fold increase from just 2 years earlier. The Ford Motor Company announced plans for a massive bomber plant at Willow Run, Michigan. Boeing expanded its Seattle facilities. Douglas Aircraft hired thousands of workers. The arsenal of democracy was awakening from its peaceful slumber. The Nazi leadership's dismissal of American capabilities stemmed from a toxic combination of racial prejudice and willful blindness to inconvenient facts. General Friedrich von Bodecker, the German military attaché in Washington from 1933 to 1941, sent accurate and increasingly urgent reports describing American industrial mobilization. His December 1940 cable warned Berlin in stark terms. American war production will reach unimaginable heights. Berlin's response was to dismiss these warnings as defeatist exaggeration. When Bodecker met Hitler in February 1939 to discuss American potential, the Führer ranted about American racial degeneracy rather than listening to intelligence assessments. Hitler proclaimed Americans half Judaized, half negrified, and incapable of sustained warfare. This ideological blindness would prove fatal. The prejudice permeated all levels of German leadership. Luftwaffe intelligence dismissed reports of women entering aircraft factories as signs of American desperation. They couldn't conceive that democratic mobilization might exceed totalitarian command efficiency. When reports arrived of factories running 3 shifts around the clock, German analysts assumed exaggeration. The Nazi worldview simply couldn't accommodate American reality, a failure of imagination that would cost them everything. Ford's Willow Run plant embodied American ambition made manifest. Constructed on Michigan farmland beginning April 18, 1941, it became the world's largest factory under one roof. 5 million square feet with an assembly line stretching 1 full mile. Charles Sorensen, Ford's production chief, made a promise that seemed impossible: to build 1 B-24 Liberator bomber per hour when other factories managed 1 per day. The initial results were catastrophic. The first bomber, completed in September 1942, required complete rebuilding. Quality control failures reached 50%. By February 1943, Willow Run produced just 56 bombers monthly against promises of hundreds. Critics dubbed it, "Will it run?" But Ford engineers persevered with typical American determination. They broke the B-24's 488,193 parts into manageable subassemblies. They developed hydraulic riveting tools, prefabricated wiring harnesses, and revolutionary moving assembly lines. They accommodated 578 design changes in 1943 alone while maintaining production. The breakthrough came in April 1944 when Willow Run produced 428 B-24s, one every 63 minutes, 24 hours daily. This single factory was outproducing the entire German aviation industry. Hermann Göring would later call it that damned factory that broke our backs. German pilots first recognized American production superiority during the Tunisia campaign. Major Johannes Steinhoff, commanding JG-77, noted in December 1942, "The American pilots are no longer amateurs. Most disturbing, there are more of them every day." The revelation accelerated through 1943. January 27th marked the first American raid on Germany itself, 64 bombers attacking Wilhelmshaven. By October, during Black Thursday at Schweinfurt, the Americans could lose 60 B-17s and replace them within 2 weeks. The mathematics had become inescapable. During Big Week, February 20th-25, 1944, the 8th and 15th Air Forces mounted 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production. The Luftwaffe lost between 262 and 355 fighters, but more critically, approximately 100 irreplaceable veteran pilots. General Adolf Galland reported to Göring that Germany was losing 1,200 fighters monthly while producing 1,000. America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing 400. Major Heinz Bahr, one of Germany's top aces with 220 victories, described a January 1944 mission over Brunswick with despair. The bomber stream stretched from horizon to horizon, at least 700 flying fortresses and liberators. We were 8 fighters against hundreds. It was hopeless. By 1944, American aircraft production reached proportions that defied comprehension. That year alone, factories produced 96,270 aircraft, 16,048 4-engine bombers, 35,743 fighters, and 22,591 multi-engine aircraft. This single year's production exceeded Germany's entire wartime output of approximately 94,677 aircraft. The disparity went beyond mere numbers. Each American bomber carried 13 50 caliber machine guns with thousands of rounds. German fighters increasingly launched with partial ammunition loads. American bombers featured power turrets, advanced bomb sights, and sophisticated navigation equipment. German fighters often lacked functioning radios. Boeing's Seattle Plant 2 was producing 16 B-17s daily by May 1944. Douglas Aircraft, which employed just 68 people in 1936, had grown to 167,000 workers across 9 facilities. North American Aviation churned out 500 P-51 Mustangs monthly. Lockheed achieved production of 1 P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes while implementing 2,127 combat-driven modifications. The transformation of America's workforce shattered Nazi preconceptions about democratic societies. Women, comprising less than 1% of aircraft workers in 1941, represented 65% by 1,943,310,000 women among aircraft industry workers. At Douglas Long Beach, 22,380 of 41,620 employees were women. Roswell Monroe, the original Rosie the Riveter, drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run with 99.5% accuracy. Women inspectors at Douglas reduced defect rates from 3.2 to 0.3%. Ford redesigned tools for smaller hands, inadvertently improving efficiency. Lighter pneumatic tools reduced fatigue, while better positioned workstations decreased injuries. German intelligence interpreted female employment as desperation, predicting quality collapse. Instead, precision improved. Women excelled at detailed work, wiring, instruments, inspection. Their integration represented democratic strength, not weakness. As American production soared, Germany retreated into increasingly desperate measures. Göring authorized the Jaeger program in February 1944, dispersing production into 729 underground facilities using slave labor. The Mittelbau-Dora complex employed 60,000 prisoners in horrific conditions, with 20,000 dying. These underground factories produced more defects than aircraft. Slave laborers sabotaged components. Transportation between dispersed facilities caused delays. Quality control collapsed. The entire Middlework complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation accelerated. Boeing developed modular B-29 construction across 4 facilities with completely interchangeable parts. The pressurized B-29, costing $650,000 each, incorporated technology Germany couldn't match even in prototypes. By early 1945, America was producing 100 B-29s monthly. June 6, 1944, demonstrated the culmination of American production dominance. The invasion employed 11,590 Allied aircraft against 319 German sorties, a 36-to-1 superiority. This wasn't tactical advantage, but industrial annihilation. Between January and May 1944, preparatory bombing dropped 145,000 tons on German targets, exceeding all German bombing of Britain throughout the entire war. Transport aircraft delivered 3 airborne divisions in one day using more planes than Germany's entire transport fleet ever possessed. By December 1944, single raids involved 1,200 bombers escorted by 900 fighters. P-51 Mustangs possessed range to reach Poland, performance to match any opponent, and existed in quantities, making losses irrelevant. German pilots called them Indians, swarming everywhere simultaneously. As defeat approached, even Nazi leadership acknowledged the production catastrophe. In December 1944, Goebbels wrote in his diary, "Göring's promises about Luftwaffe superiority now seem criminal delusions. We fight the world's greatest industrial power with rhetoric." Rommel told his staff before D-Day, "The Americans can lose 10 tanks for every one we destroy and still overwhelm us. When they land, they will come with such material superiority that no position can hold." Even Hitler admitted to Speer in January 1945, "We should have listened to Bottcher's reports." Their industrial potential was decisive. While we built hundreds, they built tens of thousands. Hermann Göring's arrest on May 8, 1945, marked the beginning of his confrontation with reality. Initially defiant, he maintained German technology had been superior, overcome only by numbers. But intensive interrogation at Camp Ashcan revealed his evolving recognition of American industrial superiority. "I knew American industrial potential was great," Göring admitted to Major Kenneth Heckler, "but the execution exceeded my worst fears." That single factory at Willow Run produced more aircraft than our entire bomber force at peak. It was incomprehensible. During his trial at Nuremberg, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of American production superiority. Charts showed America producing more aircraft monthly by 1944 than Germany managed annually. Göring's March 14, 1946 testimony revealed his struggle to comprehend the scale. "I never imagined they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years. Such growth seemed physically impossible." The transformation's scope remains staggering. From 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America produced 295,959 by war's end, 97,810 bombers, 99,465 fighters, and 98,684 others. This represented not just quantity, but systemic superiority in every aspect of production. 2 million Americans worked in aircraft production at peak, including unprecedented diversity: women, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, disabled workers, teenagers, and elderly citizens. This democratic mobilization achieved what totalitarian command could not: voluntary cooperation that exceeded forced labor's output by every metric. On October 15, 1946, hours before his scheduled execution, Hermann Göring wrote his final letter containing his most completed mission. "The Americans won through industrial power, not military prowess. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. The nation we dismissed as capable only of building consumer goods buried Wehrmacht under aluminum and steel." His last recorded statement was equally revealing. "We declared war on an industrial giant while it slept. When it awoke, we were doomed. They didn't just outproduce us, they revolutionized production itself. The production miracle's significance transcended military victory. It proved democracy's superiority to dictatorship, freedom's advantage over tyranny, voluntary cooperation's strength over forced obedience. The workers who achieved this transformation weren't slaves or conscripts, but free citizens united in common purpose." Hermann Göring's dismissal of American production capacity stands as history's most catastrophic miscalculation. His contempt for democratic industrial potential cost Germany the war and millions of lives. His failure to recognize American capabilities sealed the Third Reich's fate before the first bomber reached German skies. America in 1940 appeared unprepared for war. By 1944, it had become an unstoppable industrial colossus. The arsenal of democracy proved that production lines could be as decisive as front lines, that assembly workers could be as crucial as soldiers, that industrial mobilization could determine victory as surely as military strategy. From his dismissive reaction to Roosevelt's announcement in May 1940 to his execution at Nuremberg in October 1946, Hermann Göring's journey traced the arc of Nazi Germany's destruction. His mockery of democratic industrial capacity became history's most expensive joke, paid for in the currency of total defeat. The B-24 bombers rolling off Willow Run's assembly line every 63 minutes weren't just aircraft. They were democracy's answer to tyranny. Each rivet driven by a woman who'd been a housewife months earlier. Each engine built by a teenager who'd left high school to serve. Each wing assembled by workers who'd fled poverty and discrimination. Hermann Göring laughed at the idea of America producing 50 000 planes annually. America responded by producing twice that many, transforming global history in the process. His laughter echoed through history as the sound of catastrophic miscalculation, the fatal dismissal of democracy's arsenal by a man who understood neither democracy nor production. In the end, both buried him and everything he represented under 300,000 aircraft that turned his contempt into history's most complete defeat.